What's up, everybody? This is Matt Brown with another IoT hacking video. Today we're taking another look at the Contec CMS8000. This is a hospital patient monitor that has been in the news recently. The United States government is claiming there's a Chinese backdoor in this device, specifically surrounding the firmware update process. We talked in the last video how this claim is probably overblown and it's probably a case of just some insecure coding, and we talked about Team 82's blog post that kind of lays out the argument for that. We're not going to rehash that in this video. In this video, what we're going to do is we're going to show how IoT security researchers, if we were going to hunt for a backdoor in an IoT device like this, how we go about extracting the firmware off of this device so that we can analyze it for potential backdoors or other security flaws, right? Team 82's claim is that there are legitimate security flaws in this device that should be fixed, and it should be configured in a more secure way, but that it was not an intentional backdoor. But we will be showing the firmware extraction process. So let's go over to our desk. If you have watched the live stream, you've kind of seen this process performed already, but I'm going to add a couple of things that I have learned and some tactics for analyzing this device that I have picked up on since we did that live stream. And so here we have already kind of opened up our device. And let's zoom in here. And so we can see that there's a lot of different PCBs that are a part of this device. Here, for example, is a PCB related to all of the various instruments that we can plug into this patient monitor. But the heart of this unit is contained in this PCB right here. And we have kind of this trio that we usually find in Linux-based IoT devices, right? We have a CPU, we have RAM, and we have flash storage. So this flash storage chip right here is going to be the target of our video today. And so what I'm going to do, I've already disconnected the many connectors that connect into this PCB just to speed things along in our video today. But we're going to take this circuit board out of the enclosure so that we can do chip off. We're going to pull this chip off of the board and do chip off firmware extraction. And we're going to use hot air, so we want to be able to isolate as many components as we can to not fry any plastic like we kind of did on our live stream. But it's still okay. I have reconnected this chip. It is functional. So we've done chip on and off one time already, so we're going to do it again. All right. So slightly out of frame here. Let's come back. So we just got 4 screws here on our main board. Some other things of interest up here, we have kind of the controls. So the power button sits on the opposite side of this PCB. So these are a lot of the inputs that you can give to the device. Now, we noted in our video, we were actually looking for UART. That's not what we're doing in this video. And we noted that a bunch of these kind of interfaces here have UART1, UART2 labeled, but actually what I have come to figure out most of those UART interfaces are for interfacing between the different PCBs, right? It's the data transfer, and there are microcontrollers located on this board. There's actually also a microcontroller or 2 over on this board, and then on our board that has the peripherals, there is, I believe there might be one on the other side of this. There's definitely an empty spot for a microcontroller on this board. Yeah, actually we don't have, but we do have these connections that's obviously transmitting data to our central board. And so most of those UARTs are not providing a console that we would get like a shell out of, but it's actually just the interconnect between these different PCBs. So we've got that off, and we have these 2 little hoses here that we're going to disconnect, and then we have the main board that we care about today. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this, and we are going to clear our workspace so we are not messing around with any of that. And so let's zoom in and take a closer look at our board. again, like I said, over on this side of the board, we have actually a couple of microcontrollers. So they're actually, again, like I said, there's a lot of UART interconnects. Over here, though, is what we're going to focus on today: CPU, RAM, and flash. This is our target. And you heard me mention that I shielded a lot of stuff, but I did not shield this. And so this actually did melt a little bit, but it is still just fine and functional. This isn't actually something you plug in. These are all connectors that bridge two connections on either side, little like dip switch like things, and so they're fine. And so we are going to shield this because we're going to be throwing hot air at this chip, so we don't want things like this to melt. They actually did melt a little bit even though I shielded them, but I was able to reconnect everything just fine. So I'm going to use some heat resistant tape here, and we're going to tape off around the area of our flash chip because we only need to heat up this chip, not anything else. And full disclosure, this is going to be easier this time around because I did end up replacing the solder with lead-free lower temp melting solder on when I reconnected this chip. So if you want to see how hard it was the first time, just go back and watch that live stream. All right, and this time we're going to shield this because I mentioned I got the funky, burning plastic smell, which you usually don't want to smell when you're looking at these devices. All right, there we go. So we got that. And then again, I got some other plastic components here. I'm really gonna just tape off everything because I do want to put the chip back on, which will hopefully display in this video the process of doing that, if all goes well. And I want the device to function again because we want to do some analysis and maybe later even do a firmware modification video where if we want to get some kind of remote access to the system, we could maybe do that by modifying the firmware and throwing us a shell somehow. Okay, one more thing. I might be overkill right now, but it's all good. Oh no, it is this way. All that plastic shielding it from the heat. There we go. And now we are ready to go. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to switch over to our microscope. Here we go. And there is our flash chip. Very nice. So I've got my hot air station. It's heating up. And we're going to apply heat. Again, I could use some flux, but I'm guessing this is actually going to come off pretty easy. That's my theory anyway. And with these TSOP 48-pin chips, you can take them off one side at a time. You want to be careful not to lift it too far because then you're gonna potentially bend things in a way that you don't want to. But if you do it very carefully, that is sometimes effective, especially when you're not dealing with low temp solder like we are right there, and that just came off beautifully. All right, and now I realize that I did not have my air extraction on for any of that, so lucky me. All right. I am gonna turn on my air extraction because I'm gonna be cleaning up this chip a little bit. Don't want to be breathing in any fumes that I don't have to. So now I've got my soldering iron, and we're just gonna look for any bits of solder that are along the edges here. And I got my braid, and we're just gonna slowly go along here, very gentle. Don't want to bend any of these pins. There we go. Okay, that looks decent on that side. Let's take a look at the other side. This side looks solid. All right. At this point, I'm just like nitpicky. Well, let me just go across everything. That looks great. That looks great. That's going to go in the reader just fine. Now I've got some Q-tips and some isopropyl alcohol. I didn't use any flux this time, but I did use flux last time, so there's probably still some flux residue, as well as when I reattached the chip. I used flux, and so that's not all cleaned up, and so there's definitely some left laying around on the board. Just want to clean that up as much as I can before I go and stick this in our reader. All right, that looks pretty good. Just going to throw a little bit more hot air at our chip to evaporate our isopropyl alcohol. Go. There we go. That looks great. Now, I can turn off this annoying air extraction and, okay, I'm on camera. Focus, focus. There we go. All right, so I mentioned the live stream. So this is my tried and tested XGECU T56. This is the new the T76. And so this, the wine driver, is not very stable for, and so we're going to actually set that aside today, and we're just going to utilize the old device. I mean, it's not that old, and you really don't need to upgrade to this yet. This might have some features in the future the other one doesn't have, but honestly right now it just doesn't. And so now what I'm doing off camera is I am hunting for the USB cord. We got our cord. We're back. All right. So we're gonna plug this in, plug it into my computer, and you'll notice here I've got the adapter that uses the little ISP cord here. I don't think I need that for that. I think you only need that when you're doing a TSOP56 chip. But we're going to, all the same, we're going to take this. Actually, I'm going to take it out, and I'm going to show how I like to use the microscope to make sure that my chip is all lined up in here. You don't need a microscope. You can do this with your eyeballs, but it's just really nice to eliminate, especially when you're having trouble like doing a firmware read. You want to guarantee that this is not one of your single points of failure, that you've kind of shored this up. So let's go onto the microscope and let's focus, bring the focus out. There we go. And now we're going to take our chip. We're going to drop it in here. And as we do that, this is also an excellent opportunity for us to just take a look at the markings on this chip. And because we can see here, this looks like a chip that's made by Uni IC, sorry. And we have the serial number for this chip right here. The problem is that our reader does not support this chip. This seems to be a very uncommon brand of flash chip. And so that is going to pose us a little bit of a problem that we're going to have to overcome. There we go. So that side's all lined up. We're great on that side. Again, this reader, you want to have the pin 1 facing up towards pin 1, but all the way towards the bottom if there's slack space on either side. So there we go. We're going to come back over here, and now we're going to plug this in. And let's get that situated. We're going to plug this in even if we don't really need to. There we go. We're going to lock that in place. So this is ready to go, powered on. Let's go over to the desk here and let's get ready to read this. So over here in our XG Pro software, it says here that the programmer is connected, and when we search for the serial number, right, like it does not show up here. So I'd have to go over there and read it, but you just trust me on this. Like that brand is not even, if we remove this and we look for that brand here, it doesn't even exist in the list of supported chips to do an extraction on. So what we did that was crazy in our live stream is I was just like, you know what? Let me just find some random WinBond chip, and this is what we did. And we found this specific. I guessed one, it didn't work, and then I guessed this one. I was literally just, scrolling through the list and picked this one. Now I was doing it somewhat intelligently. I know WinBond is like a really common brand, and that there are other chips that make their chips to be compatible with WinBond chips, even though they're a different manufacturer. Like, it'll read just the same. The only thing that we have to change that we talked about is that if we do a profile that, use a profile of one chip and try to read a different chip, then we have to uncheck this check ID checkbox, because it's going to read the little 4-byte serial number or whatever, some identifier on the chip, and if it's not what's expected, then it's going to not perform the firmware read, right? Now, we did that, but I have another theory that we're going to test live here on the video stream. So in Team 82's blog, they had a different chip here. So here you can see their chip is this one made by Spansion. And so they even were nice enough to give us this whole serial number or model number for the chip, excuse me. And so what we do is we can go Spansion right here. So we have a profile for a chip. And again, you do see this sometimes with IoT devices where they will manufacture a device, and in different, firmware batches, they'll have different flash chips, but they're the same effectively. Like, they have the same storage, all the same features, right? Because the software needs to, expect the same thing. But they might have a supply chain issue where they can't, get a supply of. They want to make 1,000 devices. They can't get 1,000 chips of one flash chip. So maybe they'll get 500 of one and 500 of another, something like that. And so we're actually going to try live. We're going to try using this profile. So what we're going to do is we're going to go again and again. We have to disable this check ID part. And we can actually go in here and we can actually do read ID. So we can actually just try to read the ID off the chip. And it reads as C8D180. 95, right? And so if I let's say we re-enable this and then I try to do a firmware read, it's going to tell me, hey, it did not get back the expected ID, right? And then it's like, giving me all this thing. It's like, oh, is it connected right? No, it's connected just fine. You just need to disable that. So we're going to try that, but first we have to configure something that's really important. Because what we want to do right now is we want to just extract the firmware and to be able to right away extract all the any file systems and stuff like that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go to these configuration options, because this is a NAND flash chip that has some spare area. And so what we need to do is we want to actually read it without the spare area included, right? So what'll happen is when you include the spare area is you'll get, a certain amount of data. Here we go. You'll get a page of data, 200 and, like so many blocks or whatever. You'll get a chunk of data, and then you'll get, if it's not utilizing the spare area, it'll just be all zeros or all Fs or something like that, right? And then it'll be like that for every so many bytes. And so what we need to do is we want to not include this right now, because we just want to instantly extract file systems. Now, if we do firmware modification, we need to kind of be aware that this spare area exists, and we need to account for that. But right now, we're just going to do that. We're just going to do it this way. So we're going to say none, and then we're going to go to device, and we're going to go to read. And I have not done it with this chip profile before. So this looks good. This looks like it might work. And this would have been the smarter thing for me to do in the live stream. But when you're doing a live stream, you have to think on the fly. So I just tried a random WinBond chip profile. Okay, it succeeded. It even succeeded. Okay, and the WinBond chip didn't have any of this OTP data, which usually we don't care about. Yeah, I mean, oh, there's actually not. Whoa, it's kind of interesting. There's it's not all blank. Whoa, See, that's kind of interesting. Okay, well, I don't know. I'm not really worried about that right now. All I care about is like the main data here in block 0. And so what we're going to do is we're going to save this to our temp folder. We're just going to call it firmware dump.bin. We're going to save that to temp. It's saved. We're going to come over here and we're going to move /temp firmware dump here. And now we have our file. Now we can run binwalk. I have been testing both the regular binwalk and binwalk v3, the newest version of it. So right now, when I run binwalk 3, it's like the version, it's the newer version, and if I do it without, it's the old Python version. So right now, I'm going to use completely the new version of binwalk, and yeah, man, okay, we're going to run that again so we can see everything, and it gives us a ton of results back, which is kind of interesting, but we really kind of just care about file systems right now. And so what we see inside of here is we see a couple of CRAMFS file systems. And so these are of interest, but there's also other stuff that's interesting in here, because from these articles, what we actually kind of want to go after is there's some code, right, that the update process is doing this thing where it's actually mounting an NFS file share at the IP address. That's the Chinese backdoor that the CISA thinks is so like bad and evil that they have blanked out the IP address. But like the based people they are, Team 82 over here does not feel the need to do such a thing because they don't. And you can see here that the IP address is this like public IP address that is routable to China, but they intend you to use it. They intend you to set up locally. It's really weird. But we have this. So here we'd be looking for a binary of some kind that is going to have this following text here. So NFS, and then let's just you know what? We're gonna actually type it down here. 202.143. Yeah, like this thing. Where's the NFS command? Aha, here they go. Here we go. We're going to do like this. We're going to search for this. So what we can do right now is we can just run strings on this whole firmware, and we can say grep for that. And it actually finds those strings located somewhere inside of our blob. Now, on the live stream, I made a comment that was like incorrect, right? So the old binwalk, okay, so let's look at the options for the old binwalk. Had this option -dd that I use all the time, right? So sometimes binwalk, it extracts everything perfectly for you when you just use that -undercase E flag, and you don't need to do anything else. But sometimes it gets things wrong for whatever reason, and you just want it to carve all the files out. And so what you could do is you could do -dd equals, and then it's a regex, so you could just do .star, and it'll carve every type of file it can find out and drop it into the folder for you, which is really helpful. And I made a comment in the live stream that I was like, oh, but this feature isn't in the new binwalk v3. Well, it is. It's just called carve, which is actually the better name for it. So I apologize for claiming incorrectly that this feature has not been matched in the new version of binwalk. It has. So let's actually go ahead and do that right now. Let's do binwalk carve, and we're going to, do we want to extract also? Yeah, let's also extract. No. Let's just carve. Let's just carve, and let's go like this. And it's going to give me maybe some errors. I don't really care about that right now. So we're just going to let it do its thing. Oh, wait. I'm completely wrong here. No. I need to do binwalk 3, because this is just for me. I just need to do binwalk 3. So now we have extractions, and now we have a bunch of files here, which is really interesting, because now what we can do is we can go and we can look in these carved files to see specifically where this interesting mount command is located. And now we're narrowed down to 3 binary files, and 2 that are called unknown, and 1 that is an ELF. So if you're familiar with ELF, it stands for something that you can mention in the comments. I'm gonna butcher it. It stands for executable something format. executable in link format. You can roast me in the comments for not knowing that, but it's basically binary. It's a binary on Linux, and so what we can do here now is we can go ahead and look at this ELF file, and we can see that it is a 32-bit ARM binary. It is statically linked, which is kind of interesting, right? Most of the time in Linux, you are not statically linking things. But now what I like to do sometimes, like before I jump into Ghidra and really get deep into reverse engineering things, I like to understand where strings are relative to other strings. Like if there's one string I'm looking for and I find it in a binary, knowing what other strings are adjacent to that string gives me some context to what's going on. So what I'm actually going to do is we're just going to run strings on that file and then go less, and then I'm going to just copy the little thing that I'm looking for here, and I'm going to search with less, and now I can see kind of what's going on around this thing. And so here we can see, yeah, okay, so update from LAN, right? So here is what they talk about in those two blog posts, which I'll link in the video in the description below. So this is a part of a firmware update process where you're expected to kind of point the device over to this server, and it is going to mount a remote share and pull the firmware off of there, right? So obviously you could use that to get code execution. Now, they note in the Team 82 blog post that you do have to like go in the medical device, and you have to manually like press buttons in order to do this. It doesn't just automatically all the time go out to this IP and try to auto update, right? It is a very manual process that is initiated. So, but this is cool because now we have this ELF binary that we've carved out, and we can do some cool analysis on that and reverse engineering, which we might do in a later video. But I want to do one more thing. So now we've carved a bunch of files, but you'll notice in this big long thing, we don't actually have any directories. So it didn't carve out it didn't extract any file systems because we just used the carve option. So what we're going to do, I'm going to do E instead to just extract file systems, and I'm going to do that on our firmware dump, and it's going to say, okay, we extracted a bunch of stuff, and oh yeah, this is great. So the cram fs extractions failed, but we can actually go back in, or no, we can go here. Yes, this is perfect. We can go right here, and we can manually try to open up these. So here we go. We've got two cram fs file systems, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to say there's this cram fsck program which lets you extract content. So what we're going to do is we're going to do -x, and I'm just going to call it, fs1, and then our file, and we'll run this root. Make sure okay. It like creates the directory even if it can't. Okay, go there. There we go. And just for fun, we're gonna grab this other one and we're gonna extract that as well. And we'll put that in fs2. Now we're gonna grep through here, and what I want to look for actually is I want to look for any password or shadow files. And so I'm gonna just go like this. I'm gonna grep for shadow. There are no file paths that include shadow. What about password? There are a couple password files. So obviously this is a false positive. That's just the password binary that lets you change your password or a user's password in Linux. But right here, we have a very interesting file. We have a root user with a blank password. So that means that the root user, if we were able to get a shell or SSH to the thing somehow, then root does not have a password. And then what's interesting, we found out on stream, is there's this PLG user, and then we have a old school, I believe this is like a descrypt password hash, and it was on stream live. Somebody grabbed this password hash that I put into the chat, and they cracked it, and it happens to be the same as the username. So PLG is the username and password for this Linux user on this device, which is pretty interesting. that we can find a password like this and it's so easy to crack. So that is a couple things we can do, and there's going to be analysis that we can do down the road. But what we're going to do now is we're going to go over to the desk and we're going to get that chip back on and get the device up and running. So we're all done. We can power off our reader. I'm going to get our chip out. And we're going to get ready to drop it back onto our board. And let's just, yeah, we're just going to take a look at that. And now we're going to go into the microscope here. And we're just going to see what we need to do. Get this in focus. So, like I said, I did put some solder back on there. It looks like on a number of these contacts, that solder definitely got, you know, lifted a little bit off onto the chip. So we probably want to put a little extra solder on there. I'm just going to put some gloves back on because I'm going to use flux. I do not like getting flux all over my hands. It's probably not good for you. I'm not a scientist. I don't know. So. Yeah, so the plan is going to be, clean this up a little bit, throw some new flux down. We're going to actually, yeah, we don't need to clean it up right now. Let's just get flux and let's get some solder back on both of the sides here. There we go. There we go. And, all right. And then I got some solder. And yes, turn air extraction on. There we go. There we go. Now we can do some drag soldering. Oh, come on. There we go. That looks awesome. We can go over to this side. There we go. That all looks solid. Now, okay, so now we actually have like a good deal of flux still on there. Okay, we have our pin 1 indicator right up top here. It's kind of hard to see in the reflection right up there. And so we are going to just get our chip most of the way ready where it's all lined up. It'll move a little bit when we add heat, but I like to just get it most of the way ready to connect. There we go. Now, we are going to add heat. Okay, if you've done rework in the comments, let me know. Do you do tweezers in your dominant hand or your offhand? I'm actually left-handed, and so I actually I do hot air in my right hand, and then use my left hand for touching, like getting this knocked into the right spot, because that's usually a little more important than, you know, blasting hot air at something. Okay, I think we're getting good contact there. Awesome. I think we're good. Oh, that's really bright. There we go. Okay, now we're just gonna let that cool off. So I'm gonna actually, rapid cool technology. I did not invent that. If you know who did, you can leave me a comment. We stand on the shoulders of giants. All right. Cool. All right, how are we doing? It's still a little bit hot. All right, I can, though, start to take all of this off and just get prepared to connect everything back up. So all we're gonna do is I'm gonna get this connected back. I'm gonna connect what I know. So there's actually only 2 connectors that you need to get the monitor, to get the device to boot, and the monitor. So this is the monitor, and then one of these over here, I want to say this is power. So we really only have to connect up 2 things. Okay, it looks like I didn't melt anything this time. All the if you see any damage, from what I can see, that was all from last time, because I melted some other stuff. But all right, looks good. Let's get this unit back up here and let's get it hooked up. I'm gonna turn on off my air extraction. Shove it out of the way here. Okay. So we will connect these hoses back up, just because they're annoying if you don't. Okay, this clearly goes farther down. All right, so that goes there. So I'm just gonna put like 2 of these screws on. We do not need to attach all of them. There we go. One more. Got it. Okay, that's good enough. Okay, so this is the monitor. It connects the screen, the big screen in the front. And then, like I said, I believe this is the main power line right here that provides power. And then I'm going to simply hook up the battery over here. And then we should be able to very carefully observe the device boot back up. And this looks like we're going to get a pretty good confidence that we did the chip on, connected the flash chip back correctly. We'll definitely know as it boots up. Yep, looks good. I just want to let it boot up all the way. I mean, I think this is obviously the Linux OS that's responsible for that, but I haven't reverse engineered that far yet. And there we go. We're all back up and ready to go. All right, we're gonna turn that off. Off. Yeah. And then I am also going to disconnect the battery because I don't want to get shocked by that. All right. Awesome. So there we have it. We did the chip off firmware extraction of the Contec CMS8000 patient monitor. It's been in the news. We've found the binary that's in question. And I think the next steps are going to be really getting that binary in Ghidra and just doing some really basic Ghidra reverse engineering and figuring out if we can replicate an exploit that is related to this alleged backdoor, right? Which probably isn't a backdoor. Thank you for watching this. If you like this content and you want to support the channel, just subscribe. That's the best way to support me and support the channel. Also, head over to the Discord if you're not there yet. And if Discord's not your thing, I totally understand, you know, privacy and all that stuff. But head over there because we have a really cool community where there are lots of people who are way smarter than me who are happy to answer questions, happy to collaborate on cool IoT hacking projects, and it's just a fun time and a fun community to be a part of. So thank you for watching to the end. If you have an awesome day.